Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Nichols from the Oxley Institute and author of the indispensable LinkedIn Sales Guide for Financial Advisors. And I'm here with Stephen Boswell, author of Best Practices of Elite Advisors. And today we're going to be talking about the importance of LinkedIn settings.
And really, LinkedIn settings, as with any social networking site, can be confusing.
Yeah.
They change from time to time. They move things around. It's in their interest for you to be totally open with everything you're doing online.
Exactly.
And that's not necessarily in your own interest.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through what we feel like are three really important LinkedIn settings that maybe most advisors don't know about.
Right.
Okay, to start things off today, let's talk about where these settings are located. So what we're going to do to locate these settings, in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to hover over the little picture of yourself there, and then you're going to go to Privacy and Settings. At this point, for some of you, LinkedIn is going to require that you log in again if your password's not saved. And then if you scroll down just a little bit, you're going to see a section that says Privacy Controls. And this is where you can edit these settings.
And this is a pretty vast array of settings that you can control, not only under privacy, but if you see along the left-hand side, communication, groups, companies, etc., pretty much anything you need to do settings-wise within LinkedIn is available here in this menu.
Right. So let's talk about what we feel like are the three most important settings from a privacy standpoint. And the first one, without a doubt, that we get questions about all the time is select what others see when you viewed their profile.
And the reason we get asked about it is that if you're doing some research in advance of a big function and you're profiling Mr. and Mrs. Big online, some people don't want to be tipping off Mr. or Mrs. Big that they've been looking at their profile.
Right. They feel like a stalker in a way, right?
Right. And so we get a lot of questions about how, first of all, do you go into anonymous mode and when should you go into anonymous mode?
Yeah. So how we like to differentiate that is if we're going for more of an introduction style approach, right? We're looking for prospects on LinkedIn that we're going to get introductions to. In that case, we actually like to be in anonymous mode. We want the full credibility transfer of the introduction.
And really what we're doing here is you don't want to tip somebody off that you've been viewing their profile in advance of you trying to arrange a meeting with them or trying to do business with them. So if your approach is in garnering introductions on LinkedIn, which we think should be a big part of everybody's approach, or if you're profiling people in advance of social functions,
right?
The Mr. or Mrs. Biggs of the world, you don't necessarily want to tip them off. So go into anonymous mode for that reason.
On the other side of that, if you're using more of a cold LinkedIn prospecting strategy where you're reaching out to contacts that you don't know, and this you're going to go after directly for business, which is a little bit of a different approach, we're actually going to recommend that you're in transparent mode and let people know that you viewed their profile because we want that brand impression. We want that awareness about what you do.
Right. And today is not the time for us to go through our entire strategy on the cold prospecting approach. But just to be clear, it's a strategy mostly for newer advisors or advisors with a newer advisor on their team who can go out and make mass contacts, generate some interest. It's the today's age cold calling, let's say. So anyway,
digital cold call.
It's a strategy for some of you, not for others. But we want you to be able to make changes to this setting and make your own decision as to whether or not it's appropriate for you. So we're going to take you to this really number one setting that you ought to know, number 4 down on the list of privacy controls.
So when we click on that, you're going to have 3 options. You're going to have the first option, which is kind of full transparent mode, your name and headline. It's recommended by LinkedIn, obviously. Like Stephen said, great point, that LinkedIn wants you to be completely open, transparent. And again, it's a nice feature, especially if we're doing a lot of colder prospecting. Anonymous profile characteristics. It's going to give a little bit about, someone at the Oxley Institute. Okay, that's kind of middle of the road.
Nobody really chooses that one.
I don't think a lot of people do. And then you'll be totally anonymous. So here's the beauty of this. You can toggle back and forth between these.
Right. And the reason you would is that if you're in the free version of LinkedIn, if you remain totally anonymous, you are never tipped off as to anyone else who's looked at your profile.
Exactly.
And for some of you, that's a really big deal. Yeah. If you're in the prospecting in your community and you've had a half dozen people who've looked you up in the past month, and you want to see who these people are and perhaps make some outreach to them, that's valuable information.
Yeah, and on the other side of that, just so free version versus premium, this feature is important. If you have a premium version of LinkedIn, it doesn't matter if you're in transparent or anonymous, you're going to get the full list of everyone who viewed your profile. But again, looking at this here, we toggle back and forth. We do it all the time here internally. But if
basically, if you want a list of everybody who's viewed your profile, yet you still want to be a LinkedIn stalker, you can do it. if you want to go in and change your settings periodically to either be totally anonymous for when you're doing your online research / stalking, or in fully transparent when you want to be able to see who's viewed your profile. So one change, one setting that is a really important one.
Let's go on. Let's move into what we feel like is the second most important setting on LinkedIn, and this is who can see your connection base. We get this question all the time, and unless you're connected to, some people who are really, really high level, we really don't recommend hiding your connection base.
Well, and here's the difference. You might notice in our profiles, we hide our connections.
Right.
But a little bit of a different strategy.
It seems like a little counterintuitive there.
Kevin's a little bit of a hypocrite here. Yeah. But the difference is we have many, many, many connections to people all over the industry, and it's just the nature of our business model. That's what we do.
Right.
In your business model, it's a little bit different. And we'd recommend you leave it open because you're being more selective in who you're connecting to.
Yeah, exactly.
And the reason is, sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially if you're a more veteran advisor, you're being more selective. If you're a newer advisor, you might be going colder prospecting, which you're going to be less selective.
Yeah, sure. But your connections affect your brand. Connecting with power players helps your brand. Connecting with questionable characters hurts your brand.
Right.
Connecting with competitors isn't smart. Connecting with wholesalers really isn't that smart, because ultimately what you're assimilating here is a digital Rolodex.
Right.
I mean, this is your client base and COI list right here online that other people can see if you allow it. Now, sharing that amongst clients and COIs is fine. They can look it up and see each other, all the merrier, because you want some interconnectivity there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the main reasons we like for an advisor to open up their network, and that's the ability to offer introductions as well. If you're going to be using an introduction approach on LinkedIn, you can't just be a taker, you got to be a giver as well. And you can't do that if your connection base is hidden.
That's right. So if Kevin's a CPA and I'm the advisor and I'm connected to Kevin, I'm going to say, Kevin, I want to have a conversation with you about LinkedIn at some point. We've got a wealth of connections on there, and I'm happy to put you in front of anybody in my network if you think there'd be some value.
Yeah.
And then Kevin can go in, surf my network, and tell me who he'd like to meet.
Great strategy. Yeah, great strategy, by the way. So in order to edit this, you're going to see right down here, select who can see your connections. You can click on that. You can say only you, which means your connection base is hidden. And here I am, Mr. Hypocrite here. But again, we have a different business model. Our business model is mass, right? And then, or you could say your connections. And if you do that, then your connections, people that you connect with, first degree, are going to be able to look through and peruse your connection base. So great setting to know about. And again, if you really wanted to, you could toggle back and forth between. But I think the broader question is you have to think about what's your strategy here. And if you were a veteran with a very tight-knit network, keep it tight. Don't let competitors in, like you said, and open up the network.
Yeah, and you don't have much to worry about if there's no competitive interest in your LinkedIn. And there's no party foul at all if you don't accept a connection request from somebody who's a competitor or even in the same firm. I mean, I hate to say it, but your close colleague this week could be your competitor
exactly.
next week.
They could be moving to another firm before you know it.
If you've got 300 connections, you don't have to surf through all the time to make sure that you're not leaving yourself vulnerable. And by vulnerable, we mean they can see your connections, they know who has the money in the area, and they can make contact.
Exactly.
It's a targeted lead list for them.
Exactly. So let's talk about the third setting that we think is extremely important on LinkedIn, and that is activity broadcasts. If you're making a lot of edits to your LinkedIn profile, you do not want LinkedIn blasting out every time you're making a particular edit. It becomes annoying to your connection base, and it, frankly, from our perspective, looks like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're connected to enough advisors, Kevin, to where we get a lot of unnecessary profile update messages.
Yep.
And if you've updated some small feature on your site, I mean, LinkedIn is set up to where that's broadcast to everybody you know.
Yeah.
So who really cares? You got a new photo. Who cares other than you and your spouse, right?
Right.
All of your connections don't really care.
So let's go here, turn on and off your activity broadcast, second one down here. Look, and let people know when you make a recommendation, follow companies, all the kind of details of what you're doing. And you can check that or uncheck that. And again, I think it does depend a little bit here upon maybe what firm you're with, because if I was with a firm that's very strict about posting on LinkedIn, this might be the only way I can show up in anyone's newsfeed, right? But if I'm with a firm that actually allows posting, maybe has a content library of pre-approved posts I can use, this is not what I want people seeing every little edit I make to my profile.
Right. And one of the research projects we did recently tried to define the affluent perception of advisors who post things that are helpful.
Oh, this is good.
Versus those who don't post at all, versus those who post a lot of quizzes and pictures and memes and whatever else, things, whatever comes across their desk, they're posting it. And there is a clear and negative perception of people who overpost.
Yeah, and they're posting like just unhelpful posts, like trivia posts or
what is 4 + 4 minus.
You're a genius if you can solve this. You guys see that stuff. That negatively impacts your brand in the eyes of the affluent.
Right. So we want you to post. We want you to have the right settings. We want you to be mindful that you have a vast resource on the web right now.
Yes.
That if you let people into it in the wrong way, it can hurt your sales efforts. If you use it properly, it can help your sales efforts. But you got to know the settings.
Yep.
And if you're having any trouble with this, there's got to be, unless you're totally independent, you've got somebody in your firm who knows these settings, who can walk you through it. There are plenty of online tutorials. But whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, you have to be up to speed on what they're sharing about you, because left to their own devices, they're going to share and reveal more than you want them to.
Exactly. So take a look at this. Those are 3 settings that we believe every advisor should know, and enjoy.
Yeah. Thanks all.
Thanks.